Fast forward, you come watch on so Hoxie AGH Politics Avenue. Podcast stories are trending because make headlines. And your Jembre now you be exum ewaha and you be Broximo. And AD can you stress but you must subscribe to the channel. Hit notification bell no so share now for front so answer into me and can be medium young Broximo. Best talk say young Kuying Simonia, you're doing Simu Asukwa. Na Ahmed Suale. Upon say ye charge a year Kennedy a Japan. Any omom keke kan se omo en na se bi son se bi nyado omo ensa ehyasie allegedly fa ye frima ye abranche no itimi ifrimu ya enya asem kotoa nipa bonfo bi itimi ibo no tu ikun no abra no apon no okọ adwuma na ene Attorney General edina no nso ato nsimunum bi who be here say you call Attorney General Asweye na you could tea ni echo any di eba. Bidase say Wajemre Ewa
Ahmed Hussein Suale. Daniel also Cranting, an investigative journalist himself, had been charged with abetment of murder in connection with the murder of Ahmed Suale. He pleaded not guilty and was on a 50,000 cedis bail. But today, this development means he gets to walk as a free man. Now, our court correspondent, Lord Edwasari, spoke to the lawyer of Daniel Cranting, and she was clear in her words that right from the get-go, there was no reason why her client actually went through all of this ordeal to this moment. Take a look.
If you ask me, I have a bittersweet emotion towards the whole thing, especially since I was there with him from the beginning. We are actually a team of lawyers. We're about 5 lawyers handling Daniel Cranting, different aspects of his matter. And it was a very difficult period, knowing fully well that certain allegations were made, and then you know that no, it cannot be, because I know this person, I saw him here, we did this was done, so how can this be? Especially with the accusation that he was out of the country. That was one issue that we were like, this man was here, he's been in all our offices for years. We are handling matters for him in court. We have personally given him vehicles to go and people to go to meetings with government institutions. He works closely with the police. I have been there with him in police stations, several police stations. So, and he has traveled in and out of the country in where I'm aware. In fact, in 2024, I think it was about 4 times. We have all these things to prove that this person was never and could never be a fugitive of justice.
So he was always coordinating with the prosecution?
I would say so. I would say so. I think in the last part, he was invited, and I had an emergency, so we could not appear. I mean, shortly after he was arrested. Yes, I think that was also a small lapse on our part that has cost this gentleman quite a lot. So when I say it's a bittersweet moment, because of, I mean, even after these, after the arrest and after his bail, he's even having to seek medical attention. He's had a lot of emotional trauma. It's not been easy, even for us as lawyers. I think it was a non-starter. I think that we were abandoning things that happened 2019, which is something that we cannot do in this matter. In 2019, when this issue happened, a lot of things happened. Several arrests have been made. Have we ever heard of anybody being paraded around the way Daniel Cranting was paraded around? Has it ever been heard? But there have been several arrests. You understand what I mean? So it was shocking and surprising to everybody. I won't say, I cannot speak for somebody and their work, but from where I sit, I feel like as if I know there had to be more work to be done. And if there was more work done, like the way some media houses were saying FBI investigations, it would certainly not be pointing at my clients, because you would have known that the gentleman was all the time in the country. except for 1 week, 2 weeks when he was out of the country, I mean, doing work, other investigative works. I think it's a bit of the two. Because I feel like Ahmed Suale was a friend to Daniel Osokranting. They were very good friends. I mean, I never heard of Ahmed really, but I knew a little bit of information on the media. But whenever I spoke to Daniel and he recalled his days, he always used to mention and Ahmed and Ahmed and Ahmed. So I was surprised when all of a sudden a friend, a bosom friend, now becomes the accused. You get what I mean? So I think for Ahmed, the delay in actually looking in the right direction, I think that this thing has nothing to do with pictures. I think it has nothing to do with pictures. Because if we are going to go along the picture line, then this man's image should not be anywhere. But he was front-facing in all investigations, using his name, using his face. I'm sure you recall Kwesi Nantesi's wife even saying that she met with him. So there are several people who know that what he looks like. He has a Facebook page. You see him in some of the documentaries. They say Ahmed, Ahmed. Then you see Ahmed in the back there with a camera. So to me, I'm just wondering, why? Why must a person die because of pictures? Those pictures are a non-starter in this case, in this particular case. So what we have to be looking is casting our net wide. There were eyewitnesses who saw who these assailants were. We cannot throw that away. We can never throw that away because eyewitnesses see the people. And it looks nothing like Daniel Osokranting. And for me, if you tell me that somebody's call records show that he was in the area, I will laugh. I will laugh simply because if I was once even driving towards Peduasi to go and see a client of mine, and then my phone says, my iPhone says that you have left your other iPhone behind at Dome Kwabenya when I am en route to Peduasi and my phone is even in the bag. You understand? So I mean, for a matter this serious and a matter of such grave importance, not just in Ghana but all over the world, it should be beyond reasonable doubt, one conclusion that this and this or these people are the people who did it and no others. You understand? And no others. It cannot just be, okay, he was in the area, he was, what is that? For murder? For murder? It cannot be.
Well, so it's a lengthy, very important and an exclusive engagement that we had with Emma Jane Markin, who is the lead counsel for the now free Daniel Kranting. And as a matter of fact, she stated something in this exclusive interview that my colleague, legal affairs correspondent Lodo Dosari, had with her, that there were eyewitnesses who saw the assailants, and that should not be ignored in this matter going forward. And none of the said eyewitnesses saw the assailant say there was anybody who looked like this gentleman, Daniel Kranting, who has been freed today. What next after this development, especially for the family of Ahmed Suale? And you recall that when this gentleman was picked up about 3-5 months ago, this case has been running. The Ghana Journalists Association and others issued statement commending the Ghana Police Service for this development, only for this outcome today in court. Stay with us. We have a conversation exclusively with the head of the spokesperson for Ahmed Suale's family. So we're going to get into it. But Dennis Babere Wadam Esquire is with me. He's been following this case and how things played out in court earlier today. It's a very troubling development, at least for the family of the late Ahmed Suale. It's not looking good.
Especially when you put it within the context that this is a cold case. It's been since 2019, that's all 6 years now. And just when a suspect was picked up, I mean, there seemed not to be any progress in respect of this particular case. But of course, the reasons for which the accused person has been discharged is because the Attorney General's office has given an advice, which is very usual of some of these things. you would see that when this person was picked up, they put the person before the district court, even though the person was not going to be tried in the district court for what they call the committal proceedings. As part of the committal proceedings, they needed to forward a docket to the Attorney General's office to examine and give an advice on the way forward. That examination will include the kind of evidence that the police have been able to gather or investigations have been able to unravel. Then an assessment is made as to whether the evidence on record will be enough to continue with prosecution or otherwise. So what we are learning is that on the totality of what the investigation has been able to gather or prosecution has been able to gather, for which they forwarded to Attorney General, the Attorney General's office is of the view that the evidence available is not enough to ground this accused person in respect of the charge of murder. And just so to give you some excerpts of what has been happening, particularly in relation to the kind of evidence that prosecution was dealing with, they were actually dealing with phone records of the accused person. That is to say, the prosecution makes the case that as part of their investigations, they were able to identify that the accused person's phone was within the vicinity of the place where the murder took place.
It's around the Medina
That's
area.
around the Medina Queen of Peace enclave. And that is what they were working with. But let's see how the Attorney General's office addresses that point about phone records, aside the fact that the office makes the observation that what they presented was just an extract from a whole record, which by itself is not complete. Beyond that, they also point out to the fact that the call records placed the accused person's phone in the vicinity where the deceased was killed. That, however, the presence of the accused person in the vicinity, based on his phone's location alone, is not sufficient to charge him with the murder of the deceased.
Right.
That is to say, granted that even the accused person's phone was in the vicinity at the time the incident happened, that alone, without more, is not enough to charge him with the offense of murder. They go on to indicate that though it is stated in the police report dated 30th April 2025 that the accused was in the vicinity of the deceased on the day of the killing to monitor his movements, that remains an inference until further evidence is discovered. And Alfred, it's important for us to re-emphasize this point because we have always maintained that when it comes to matters of crime, the proof on prosecution is very high. It's one beyond reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
So the kind of evidence you are working with should be the kind that can actually nail an accused person to the offense so alleged.
Because of the threshold where you're dealing with a murder.
Exactly. The office goes on to make an observation that additionally, none of the sketches of the assailants generated by the police, based on the vivid descriptions of eyewitnesses, resemble the accused person. You recall that as part of the processes in this particular matter, some sketches were made based on the descriptions some eyewitnesses gave as to what they saw or who they saw to be the assailants. Now, the Attorney General says that when you look at that none of the sketches match, or none of the sketches they have match the accused person.
Right.
So in that case, they do not think that the evidence they are working with is enough. It continues to say that neither has the investigation established that the accused person was one of the assailants who shot the deceased.
I see.
It continues that although the accused person could be an abettor, there must be adequate evidence to show that he was in the vicinity to abet the murder of the deceased. At this point, the office is not discounting the fact that the accused person could possibly play a role as in being abetting the crime. However, they are saying based on the evidence, it is not enough at this point to indicate that the fact that the phone showed that he was in the vicinity meant that he abetted the murder. On the totality of it, the office says that the evidence presented is therefore not sufficient to charge the accused person with abetment to murder and murder. And these are the charges for which this young man was put before the court, granted bail. I mean, he had been in custody for some time and all. The office now goes on to urge the police to continue with investigation and try to zoom in on the persons who are directly connected or whose actions are directly connected to the incidents. So this is the basis for what we witnessed today, the discontinuance of the case against the accused person in this particular matter, Alfred.
And you hear the lawyer of the now former accused or discharged,
yes,
Daniel Cranting. He indicates that, and she said that the eyewitnesses should be of interest to how this case progresses. Because if there are sketches of who the eyewitnesses say they saw, which is captured in the Attorney General's advice, then that means that we've had to reach with them, the external creditors, and also how that is impacting on our recovery over the period. Since there's greater macroeconomic stability and favorable external dynamics, I really supporting more controlled funding cost and foreign exchange reserve replenishment. And we've seen the Bank of Ghana yesterday talking about reserves and how to also show up the value of the city. Now, improve fiscal consolidation, debt restructuring progress is one of the reasons why we got this upgrade. And then also, even though all of these are positives, what does this CAA1 mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that we're out of the woods, because even though we've been moved from CAA2 to CAA1, we still have very high credit risk that it's considered. And it's slightly less vulnerable than the CAA2 that we were earlier on. And there's still speculative grade. And here's why I bring in Joe Jackson, is the CEO of Dalex Finance, is a financial analyst. Mr. Jackson, yes, a good upgrade, good development, but then again, taking into consideration all of these risks that are still associated with CAA1, is one that you would expect that the managers of the economy would be concerned about, is it not?
Yes, and what we have to realize is that even though things have improved tremendously since the darkest times when we defaulted in our debt, we've now renegotiated, we've signed off with the creditors, and best of all is the fiscal discipline that we've been showing since the beginning of the year. The fact that we are not spending as much as we could. All that has come together to improve our rating. But guess what? There's still a lot of risk involved. And if you look at the economy of Ghana as if we were a sick person, then we've woken out from the coma. Yet we are still in intensive care. They've taken out the oxygen masks. We are still in intensive care, and we still need regular monitoring, and we cannot take our recovery for granted. So please, let's appreciate the fact that the patient is sitting up and smiling. Let's appreciate the fact that we have been upgraded in our rating, confirming that we are on the right path and we were doing the right thing. But there's still a lot that we must think about. And we have to. My prayer is that those who are managing this economy will keep to the path that they have been for this period, that they will sustain the commitment to fiscal discipline. They will sustain the commitment to increasing our reserves. They will sustain the commitment.
We ayan sama hodo timi ko so channel no so mame no so je mre da sane so bade ni de adumbi edomiania yebesamba rem na yasomo kwanson so kra GH Politics Avenue.